Well, hi, this is Dr. Scott Langford with the Stanford Gen Global Educators Network YouTube channel. And I'm here today with Vered Mirmovitch, who's an associate professor of biology at West Los Angeles College, where she is deeply involved as a faculty member with their brand new, exciting California Center for Climate Education, which has recently received over $5 million in statewide funding to help design climate change across the curriculum classes, programs, and workforce education. So Vered, welcome to the Stanford Gen YouTube channel.
Nice to be here.
We don't know each other previously, so I really wanted to start out with true curiosity, asking you how you became involved with the California Center for Climate Education, and really also how you became a climate educator, since I consider myself to be one as well.
Okay, so it's all started that I grew up actually in a farming community in a little village, kind of a kibbutz in Israel. And I was always fascinated by nature. My parents both worked in agriculture. And they weren't necessarily educated, but they were educated about growing animals, and I'm shadowing them as a kid. And again, I really enjoyed nature. When I went to university, I was very interested in ecology and evolution and understanding variety of life and protecting that variety of life. I came to the United States to pursue my PhD, and I studied ecology and evolution at UC Riverside. During that time, I was more and more exposed to conservation efforts, to environmental studies. I also had a master in environmental biology. So again, my journey into ecology and evolution started in undergrad, going to master, and then PhD, and always been interested in how do we preserve the amazing diversity of life, and how we humans are actually impacting it in all sorts of negative ways. When I graduated, I took a few years of a break to raise my children and to also integrate myself into American society. Now, I want to also say that the way I grew up was also not in the capitalist society. You know, I grew up in socialist society. So a lot of my views about the needs that we have are influenced by that. And I think, capitalism is the evil that is affecting in such a negative way our environment. So I think that allowed me to see things a little different. Okay, when fast forward, when I decided to go back to the workforce, and I came as an educator to West LA College, I came to teach environmental science and biology. So I'm passionate about both topics. And I started seeing that the students have just not enough exposure to how we human actually, and our actions, our daily actions, and our collective actions as a society, influencing the environment. So I started, in addition to my class, I wanted to have some continuity, and I saw that there's a few students at least were eager to be engaged more. So I started a club. It's called the S.A.V.E Environmental Club. It stands for Sustainability Action Vision for the Environment. And it's a very kind of strong name that the student came up with back when I started in 2015 as a full-timer after 2 years of adjunct. It set kind of the tone to what the students are doing. You know, they're teaching each other, they're engaging, they're exploring. And it started from, just in the beginning, it was like discussions. And then we took over the garden. There was an unused kind of little kind of garden plots in the college. So we took them at the club and started working. And that kind of provided also, it's like social, but we teach each other, we interact like not in a class setting. It's not, there's not a lot in things at stake, but you're still learning a lot. It became a community, and students who graduated and moved on, they keep in touch. with the other students and with
Oh,
me.
how wonderful. How
Yeah,
beautiful.
and some of them have, when we started the climate center, Dr. Limbau said, Vered, bring me some students. I want speakers.
You were
I
the
want
person to talk
students.
to,
Yeah,
obviously.
I
Yes.
want students to be there. And I was like, no problem. And if you see those pictures from that day, first of all, there are some videos also of the two speakers, which are one was the president at the time, Keon
Right.
Henderson, and one was one of the previous presidents, Marilyn Chavez. They're both kind of still active with the climate, and even
That's
Keon
wonderful.
and JB already transferred to to UCLA, but they are still keeping in touch. I have other graduates, like I just got an email today from one who graduated UC Davis. She's a former president that held the club alive during the beginning of COVID. Because in spring 2020,
Yes.
we transitioned. She said, "We're not giving up. I'm gonna film myself growing like little
Oh,
little onions from the onion tips in on my windowsill, and
oh,
I'm gonna cut like the little lettuce and stuff." And I can't tell you,
oh.
it changed not for that just the students. I showed it to my husband, and he's growing onions after
Still.
Sarah's suggestion up to now, like at home, inside the house, just like those videos, those interactions. How do we recycle things, and all sorts of programs that it's like share for free and so on, that the students kind of encourage each other to participate and consume less new material. That basically, again, is a theme that is going, and also
Sure.
the
It's
students
the
themselves.
seed of the center in many ways, right? Let's use the word seed, right?
Yes,
From your
exactly. And
little acorn. As a 30 for 32 years, I was faculty advisor for the Sustainability Club, which had various names. We never had a name as good as S.A.V.E, but I so feel what you're talking about, because I too was a faculty advisor for a sustainability student group, which then gave birth to several of the most important climate leaders in the United States. So this is part of what we do at community college. The power. This really makes my heart sing to hear your stories. I didn't realize that you were also the S.A.V.E
yeah,
student
and
faculty
this
advisor.
so during the time before we had the climate center, I was already teaching environmental science. I was recruiting students. We had students active in the club. Then we started with adding, we recruited a colleague to who was pretty strong with curriculum. Her name is Jenna Cole, and she was writing to make a degree that almost everyone, an AA degree, associate degree, that almost everyone in the college can do, even with another AA degree. Just take the two
Brilliant.
core classes. And I recommended to her, I said, the environmental philosophy that, it's one of our classes, is crucial for this, because that teaches them to really think, to open their eyes, to think about how do we interact with resources? What is our approach to what's our role on this planet?
I'm going to interrupt you just to underline what you said, because as someone with a philosophy degree, I just want to put it out there that the biology instructor emphasized and insisted that there be a philosophy class included, which was one of the things that stood out to me immediately, that it's not just STEM, it's also STEAM, it's the arts, it's philosophy, it's the social sciences all together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the most brilliant things. But I love that it was the biology faculty that were insisting on a philosophy course. Thank
It
you.
all came from one conversation that I had with Rick Mayock, our professor. And I said, like, we have to include it. Now, the feedback that I got from the first people, so Sarah, that I just got an email today from, who's now back, she finished UC Davis, she went to San Diego, she just got her first job. I was a reference for her. She's, she just thanked me that she
Yes.
finished the first week and everything. So we correspond, and I send her other job offers. So I continue
Yes.
to mentor those students, and they mentor sometimes each other. So I like Alan Cooper is the second one that graduated. So Sarah is our first
Right.
graduate. She received a full ride for UC Davis.
Whoa,
A rector
fantastic.
scholarship. Yes, because she was such a stellar student. She started with my environmental science 2 class, and then she moved on and she took my biology class. But I want to say that class with Alan and Sarah was almost canceled. I only had 10 students. And my chair told me, go and tell the students that the class is going to get canceled. So I went there down, it's another building. I went there and there were 10 students in the room, and I told them this class is going to be canceled. I'm really sorry. I love this class. This is the class I want to teach, but there's only 10 students. So the students start arguing with me, and they said, you guys already canceled it in spring. This was fall 2018.
Yep,
You already
story of our
canceled the
lives.
class. We are interested in this class. We came here to get our education. We want to take environmental science too.
Yes.
This is something that is important to us. So I said to them, okay, in this case, if I have you really like that interested, let's work on it. Please write a letter, and everyone is going to sign. And we're
Beautiful.
submitting to the chair, the dean, the vice president, and you're going to say that none of you are going to drop the class. You are committed. And let's see what they're going to say about that. And that was the advocacy. And I told them, you guys take action. And I taught them this advocacy because they won this case. No one dropped the class. They all finished. And not just that, later on, that gave them power, they went to demonstrate when Greta Thunberg came. They went to join even before her, but they went to also that demonstration. They went to demonstrate. They joined, the climate change program that was at its infancy. They were the first one.
Right.
And almost all these classes were about to be canceled because we had few students who even know about it. But we, the faculty, I mean, me and Jenna really, were fighting. Don't cancel those classes. Those are important. It will grow eventually.
For the whole planet, not just for the college and for the
and I think,
essential curriculum.
That helped because now we have a lot more students. So when they took the Rick Mayock's class, they came back to me and they said, Professor, you were so right. This class is so important. And then other students that took it later, they told me, even though we take it now online, so Alan and Sarah took it in person, but JB and Keon, for example, took it online. They said, even though it was online and that we can imagine how great it would have been if we were in person, it was fundamental in our academic growth, in our thinking. So, we had another journalist come to talk to us from LA.
Yes, that's how I found out about the center. As a matter of fact, I read about you in LAist. That's how I found out.
So exactly. So Bonnie Hall interviewed my students and me when we were in, you saw the article, in the greenhouse. And they told her about that class. So I told her, so I saw her in another event. She came to cover the Juneteenth event that we had in June. And and Rick Mayock was one of the few faculty that showed up. He was there. And I said to her, Bonnie, you have to talk to Rick Mayock.
Oh.
You remember the students were talking about him? She said, well, but that piece is done. I said to her, Bonnie, you have to talk to Rick Mayock. You need to understand like what the students were talking about just for a few minutes. So it was very, very loud and it was hard to record. I took them around the building to like a little niche where it wasn't so loud that she could record him. And she interviewed him and she said, Vered, you were right. I needed to interview because again, it gave her that understanding of how we look at the same, we're looking at the same problem from so many different angles. And we expose the students to different kinds of thinking.
Yes.
And, again, so the classes give them that. The club that I run, give them the empowerment, give them the opportunity to grow and then grow the next students. I have people there that I would say almost everyone that was president of the club was terrified of this, taking that responsibility. And each and every one of them grew to be an incredible leader and grew so much through that experience that they will never forget that experience. And I also have like a couple. So there is a couple who were both in the club, not at the same time, but kind of knew about each other. They met at UC Davis, started talking about the club and their experience with me. They're married now. One of them is at a PhD program at UC Santa Cruz, and the other one
Wow.
is working for the UC reserve system. Yes, so that's another bonus you can get from, you know, being involved in the club.
Right.
But
Well, I love that the biology professor knows how to build and grow and nurture and plant communities. And it's such a wonderful conversation for me already, because it goes, I mean, I'm sure that you are also an extraordinary teacher of science, right? But you're also clearly an extraordinary community builder, and that we are community college educators. This is what we do, right? That's often the difference between us and university instructors.
yeah,
So
so
it's
I
wonderful
grew
that
up.
you have this other related talent for building networks, although networks are the most biological things ever in the universe, as we both
I
understand.
was a youth leader also in my, you know,
Oh,
my when I was growing up. That's part of, you know, what we did also in the
I
community. You know,
see.
we
Okay.
really were trained a little bit like that to nurture the younger
Oh,
children. You know,
fantastic. Right.
so I went to a youth leader camp like for 2 weeks or something when I was in
Uh-huh.
almost ninth grade, and then I was leader of, you know, the younger children, and I did even a 1 year volunteer before my army service also as
Mhm.
a youth leader, and then yeah, so I had some experience, but you know, when I started teaching, when I was teaching before at UC as a TA or at Cal State, I taught briefly as an adjunct. It wasn't really encouraged or almost kind of like expected allowed
That's
to
right.
be that,
Same.
not just a passing the information, but
Right.
also an educator.
Yes.
But I'm lucky that when I came to West LA College, there was a kind of a little shift, and that was start to be encouraged. I was
Yeah.
a little odd in the beginning in a science division, but I think that it's becoming more and more desired, not just acceptable. And I don't know if you know, but you know, I was awarded the Educator of the Year this year by the West LA College Foundation, because
Well,
people.
congratulations,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Mirmovitch. Congratulations.
Yeah,
That's
thank
a
you.
deep compliment to you as a teacher,
It,
as a scholar.
and I think part of it was because again, I connect with my students. I
Yes,
connect them to resources.
clearly.
I it's not just the student in the club, but other students as well. You know, I have a lot of other students, and I constantly am working to support them and empower them, and tell them I believe in you. I know that sometimes it's really hard, but let's work together on it. And I feel like for a lot of them, you know, when I bring the subject of climate, it's so new to them, and
Mm,
and they're kind of afraid to get there. So
sure.
I'm giving them that initial exposure, and again, I'm planting the seed because later on, sometimes they'll come back to it. It's not always that the first time, you know, sometimes when you hear about something, it takes time to simmer, and
Yes,
so a
exactly.
lot of the work is just planting the seeds, but not always seeing yet what comes out of the seedling, you know,
Okay.
and I have patience, and I do keep in touch with students, and students sometimes years after. And then
Yeah.
if I see like a job opportunity or something that kind of, you know, remind me of a specific student or of an
Hmm.
interest, I send them I forward it to them, you know, like I'm on different databases, you know, of like fish and wildlife or other, you know,
Uh,
mostly like ecological. And if I get, you know, solicitation for internships or anything like that, I immediately kind of pass it to students. I maybe send it advertised to the whole class or the classes that I teach. But if I had a student from a former class, a previous semester, that
mhm.
I think it will work for them, I send it to them. And the same thing, you know, if any student of mine say that they're interested in climate change, I immediately give them all the information about our degree and about being involved. So if you ask Joe, all the students that she's now employing there is students that I,
That's so
help
beautiful.
kind of like support and get them to the point that they are so involved.
Well, it's a privilege to talk to you, and a kind of magnificent learning experience for me to see how many ways you've been involved in the center. So many ways. Can you mention the specific classes or class that you're teaching right now, and a little bit more about that, and in terms of how that fits in with this new overall degree? Viewers may not be aware yet that in addition to setting up this wonderful center, which is for all of California, it was created by our state legislature in California to serve all 116 community colleges to help build curriculum around climate change education. So it's got this wider mission. And so how do you see yourself fitting in there as well?
So I taught environmental science 2, which is the human impact on the biological environment.
Okay.
That I've been teaching for, again, since spring 2015. And of course, there is a whole piece there. It's not the sole focus of the climate change, but it's embedded in one unit, but also throughout.
All right.
I also teach Biology-3, which is a non-major biology. And I teach Biology-7, which is major biology, organismal ecology, and evolution. So I often speak about climate change in the other classes, but this semester, for the first time, I embedded it. So we had a few faculty offered to include climate change across the curriculum into their classes. Some people just took one module, and some people put it throughout the whole class. So I took my online Bio 3 class. I have online and in person. So the online class, and every week I gave them an extra connection to what we're studying and how is this affected by climate change. So in the beginning, they had a whole module of just like introducing them to what is climate change, what are the changes. But then every week I have a reflection that there is a small assignment that is related. Let's say that week we learned about chemistry. So then we're now talking about the composition of gases in the atmosphere and how it's related to what we learned about carbon dioxide and oxygen and so on. Another week we learned about diffusion and osmosis. And we are doing an experiment in diffusion, for example, that we see the effect of temperature on how diffusion is accelerated with elevated temperatures. And I say, okay, so if you live in an environment where, it's become hotter, how's that going to affect? And if there's changes in the temperatures, that's in some location, maybe it's colder and so on. So I give them an assignment. Again, it's a little bit more complicated, but I'm simplifying it. That I give them something to read about, something to maybe sometimes it's a video to reflect, and then either a discussion or a little kind of quiz that they write. It's a writing quiz, not so much multiple choice. And I vary between those. Some of the assignments were, for example, this week, bring something from the media. There's a lot, I mean, tons.
This week especially, right? Yes.
Yes. Every week we have something, though. So they have bring, something that you read in the media, and I give them a little bit of instruction what type of media they can use, and then discuss what you learn about this and make connection to something that we discussed before and so on, and then maybe respond to another student. And I'm fascinated by what the students are saying, what they learn. It's incredible. The engagement is outstanding. And this is really students who otherwise never stop to think about this issue.
Wow. And I want to pause to underline for my fellow faculty members in California that what you're saying is that this is not just the students who come in engaged, that this curriculum engages students who traditionally have not felt themselves part of such a classroom, who have not been engaged, And that is one of the most transformative things, in my view, as well as an educator, about teaching climate change across the curriculum. This is a highly engaging, highly magnetic topic. Students can come out, as long as you make it clear to them that it does impact their lives, their careers, their learning, and it's not only about polar bears on shrinking icebergs in the Arctic. And of course, it's about that too. We're all interconnected. It's a round planet. You're a biologist. I don't have to tell you this stuff. But making that clear to students means that the topic itself becomes highly magnetic, and it catalyzes something different, and it transforms. It can really seriously transform their whole learning experience.
I would say that my work is a little easier now because it is everywhere. So they get a little bit more exposure, but many times they tell me I never knew. Like if you see the beginning of the class, some of the discussion, they say, I never knew what exactly it is. Now I understand it. Like these kind of responses. And then later on, you can see that they become like more comfortable with the topic, and they're already kind of like, and again, there is difference between different students, but it's very interesting for me to see that transition and to see the engagement, because they can, almost every time that I give them assignment, I'd say, how is this relevant to you? Connected to something about your life. You know, that's kind of an aspect that I always try to incorporate in that discussion. Don't just tell me what the media said, but how is this? Why did you choose this piece? Like, how is this this one piece relevant to you? And that's kind of like, it makes my life also more interesting, because I want to read what the students are saying.
No, you learn too. I mean, these students are deeply embedded in communities that have long histories and deep knowledge about what their environments are like, right? And how this got this way. So yeah, we learn also, I think. And I was going to mention the social justice. I was talking to your president, Dr. Limbaugh, about the fact that social justice as a mission, as a vision, is embedded in the creation and the foundation of your California Center for Climate Change Education. And I feel like this is what you're referencing in your own teaching.
Exactly, because my students, the majority of them, really, I mean, probably 90-something% come from underprivileged background, and working really hard just to support themselves, their families.
Why we do, that's why we do what we do. That's who we're here for, right? That's why we're in this game.
And you know, part of what I'm trying to also teach them is that by them being empowered, they have a voice. If they are educated, they have a voice. Beautiful. They can say, no, you're not going to put this power plant here, or you're not, you know, let's try to get public transportation. You know, I teach also biology, so the same approach I also have for them for when they go to the doctor. And when they talk to the doctor, and I say, don't just accept what people tell you, people of power. You have power too. And the power of knowledge allow you to ask questions, to question the person that maybe give you a specific you know, medication. And I give them examples, even from my family, that my parents weren't educated, and they sometimes made wrong decisions medically because they were not educated, and how that shortened their life. And how my husband get a medication, he thinks, the doctor said, I'm going to take it. I said, like, no, let's read about the side effects. Let's read if this is really the best option for you. And so I bring them examples again from my family, from my friends in circle, to show them that they could have that power if they really now educated and they understand the issues. Then they could advocate for them and their families. And I think it's resonant with a lot of students.
You're teaching advocacy, you're teaching action, you're teaching critical thinking, you're teaching global citizenship at the same time that you're teaching the skills that are essential to any working biologist anywhere. And that's a beautiful thing, to put those things together like that. So.
Yeah. My involvement is through teaching classes that I can embed relatively easily We do hikes, we do beach cleanups, we clean. Before COVID, we also used to clean the school, but the school is so clean now because there are not enough students there. We do all sorts of activities, where we went to the Grunen Run. That's like at the end of the school year. We just went one night to see, to Cabrillo Marine Aquarium to see the Grunen come to spawn. And for all the students, it was the first time they ever did something like that. So I take them to activities that give them some biological environmental exposures. We went to one time to see the king tide. You hear about this, but you never know what is that.
You actually see it. Yeah, it's so different to actually see it, not just read about it in some textbook.
Yeah, exactly.
It goes in one ear, out the other, or in one eye, out the other. Right, there we go.
And one time I took them on, so one semester, we went on a camping trip. I actually organized an overnight camping trip to a UC reserve for a class that got canceled, but I already organized the field trip. So I said to the club, do you guys want to go? And they say, okay. So I only had there together, I think there was maybe 11 or 12 students, that's it. But it really was an incredible experience for all of them. And one of the students, the director of the reserve, came and she said, I asked her, can you talk about your research or about the reserve? And there was also a postdoc from the Netherlands there, and they talk about their research. So at the end, she said, if any student here is interested in being involved in research, you guys are welcome to come in the summer or something like this. This is how much it's going to cost. So I went to the college and I said, I need some money for some 2 students or 3 students who wanted to come. So I asked, can we get a little stipend for these students to come? And 2, eventually it was only 2. They went and spent like 2 weeks doing research in the summer.
That's so beautiful, though. That's amazing. And once again, planting these seeds for the future, right? For all of our future. Yes.
And one of those students, both of them finished their bachelor, one in Cal State LA natural sciences and working now in environmental work. And the other one went to UC Davis. But that student never thought about studying birds before. But after that experience working with quails, when they went to UC Davis, they looked for a lab to work for. And they got not just to do research, but they even got paid and stayed 1 year after in the same lab, because they went to a lab of wildlife biology that worked with ducks. And it really kind of like gave them, like you go on a path and then suddenly you got a side experience and that took you on a different path that you're so happy with. All of us almost have some experiences like that. Like I wouldn't be here, for example, if it wasn't for a mentor that I had in Israel that told me, you want to study behavioral ecology, you have to go to the US. We don't have this for you here. So he kind of steered me. I was terrified of coming to this country, and I was a good student there, but my English wasn't so strong. I was nervous about it, but completely moved me to a different, my whole life is different because of that.
Well, thank you for doing the same for your own students. I have another climate educator colleague who loves to quote the phrase that what we need to give our students is roots and wings. Both are biological metaphors. So maybe that's an appropriate way for me to thank you for being here on the Global Educators Network channel today. I'm so inspired by our conversation, as I can see you. Sometimes you talk to professors and you're like, I want to take your class. And I hope that we get to meet in person someday soon.
But thank you for the opportunity. I love my job. I love my students.
So clear.
I so enjoy the work that I am doing with them, and then to see them coming back to me and reporting on how that affected their life. This is just, you can't ask for a better reward, really.
No, you can't. It's our gift and our privilege as educators in the community college system, and it's the most beautiful way to spend your life. It really is it not?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
It was really a pleasure. Thank you.
Right, a pleasure to meet you, and I will meet you in person. I'm coming. I've already decided I'm going to come down there. I'm going to come down to your campus to some event.
That's wonderful.